Hello, I'm Hugo Burnand.
Hello, I'm Cambridge Jones. Welcome to
Double exposure.
And this week we're going to do something a bit different. We're going to take you through the journey of one particular portrait by Hugo. And I'm genuinely fascinated about this because although we're beginning to know each other quite well, I actually don't know how you work and how that process works. For instance, I've got no idea how you edit or when it comes to print. So I'm going to take you from pre-shoot through, if I may, and you'll take us on this journey all the way through the shoot, and then afterwards what happens to the print and how that gets distributed. And I think choosing this photograph is particularly interesting because it's such a high-profile photo. So do you want to start by telling us what the photo, or why it's commissioned and what it's of?
Okay, so the photograph is of the King, and I took it in November 2023 after the coronation, and it has been quite widely seen by the public. It was commissioned, or the portrait was given to the Cabinet Office, and they used it as a public release initiative, and 20,000 copies of this portrait were given to various UK public offices and authorities as a representation of national unity with our new King. So it's well seen.
20,000 copies
Yeah.
around the UK.
Yeah.
Hanging on walls.
Yeah,
In
could
official...
be in embassies, town halls, churches, police stations.
Oh, internationally as well, do you think? At the embassies?
And I think some of the international embassies.
And you knew this before you even set off, so there's a fair amount of pressure on this. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
That's more likes than it would get in real on the internet, isn't it?
Yeah,
20,000. Okay, so brilliant. So you're commissioned to do this shoot.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you have to do?
Well, funnily enough, I was invited by the King to look at some paintings that are hanging in and around Windsor Castle, at the same time as doing a site visit at Windsor Castle, because we'd photographed him in Clarence House over the years. I'd photographed him in Buckingham Palace, and we felt it was important to establish his position at Windsor Castle as well. And so we spent a good half day checking out various corridors, hallways, drawing rooms or whatever. And, you know, we were taking pictures on our iPhones just to see what worked and what didn't work. But I was always fairly confident that I was going to shoot him in the Grand Corridor. Now, the reason why I chose this was because having walked down this corridor, and it's a magnificent corridor with fantastic paintings and sculptures and pieces of furniture and clocks. It's really fantastic stuff, but it's very, very dark. There's windows the whole way along, but they're quite small. Because, you know, Windsor Castle was built in the time when windows weren't. Yeah. They just let the heat out, sort of thing.
But let me interrupt you, because I'm going to constantly interrupt you on this, because I just want to make sure that myself and the listeners are getting the full picture. You say we were walking around looking at it. Who do you take with you for something like that?
Lewis, my assistant, who I sort of can't operate without.
Half the brain.
Half the brain, maybe even more. And then Robert Simpson, who is technically brilliant and remembers details which I like. He'll know where the plug sockets are. He'll know the distance between the windows. He just has that sort of technique.
But he's one of your team, not the Palace.
One of my team,
yeah.
But he's an independent photographer. But he's so good that I love having him on big shoots. And then another friend of mine who's a photographer called Ian Lewis, who, funnily enough, does quite a lot of work with the Royal Collection Trust, but works again with me. He's a lighting genius.
Okay, so you took all of those, three people with you to scout it out and work out where you're going. That's brilliant. That's okay. So you go there with these people and you scout out and you work out. By the end of that, you know where you're going to take.
Well, we look at this corridor and everyone's thinking it's so dark. How are you going to take the picture, and then the lighting or whatever? But I had seen a painting, which I'm just going to bring up on the screen now. This is a painting by Ralph Hymans, who I believe is an Australian painter, and he painted this of the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, in 2017 in the corridor that I wanted to photograph Prince Charles.
So they can see this on the Insta?
They will be able to see this on our Hugo and Jones
That's okay,
Instagram. Now, the thing is, with his artist's eye, he had allowed a lot of natural light to come into that corridor.
It's very photographic,
Yeah,
isn't it?
and I thought, wow, if he saw that and can do that, I'm going to do it in my photograph.
Did the expert lighting people that you'd taken with you put their hands in their heads in their hands in horror?
No, they love a challenge.
Okay.
We all love a challenge.
Okay.
And then we practiced in positioning, and the point of me explaining this is we wanted to have the corridor to represent the corridor of history behind our king who's just come to the throne. And then he's lit by this out-of-frame window, which is the window of the future. So he's looking and lit by the future, but he has representation of history behind him.
And I'm sure you'll come on to this, but is that, because it's obviously there's a window behind him and yet there's light on his face. So is that naturally coming from that, or do you maybe want to come on to that later?
No, I'm afraid we cheated.
Yeah.
Because, and this is, I'm not great on the technical stuff, and I'm going to try and make it as easy to understand as possible. But we had to keep the shutter open for quite a long time to let all this natural daylight fall in. And in order not to have him blurry or out of focus, I actually had him standing in a tunnel of black velvet. So he was basically in the dark. And we had an artificial light here representing the window. So the shutter opens for 4 seconds, all that light falls in behind, he's completely black. And then just before the shutter shuts, the flash of light comes off and lights him as if he is.
We're going to have to help listeners because I'm looking at it and I still don't understand it. So where's this black tunnel above him?
Yes, out of frame, around him. Yeah,
and that's dampening down any reflections from that.
So basically, without my flash at the end of the exposure, it would be a black silhouette of a man standing against the corridor.
Got it. Okay. But you can.
But what we did is we
light.
added some artificial light, but we had it at the same angle as the window, so that it looks like window light.
Very clever.
And full praise to my team, especially Ian Lewis, because I think it looks like natural daylight throughout.
Totally.
And it also has a painterly feel to the photograph. Now, while I give Ian Lewis an enormous amount of praise, as I do Lewis and everyone else who was on the shoot, actually the camera was really important.
Okay, what was the camera?
And the camera was a Fujifilm GFX 100 Mark II.
Medium format.
Medium format.
So large, what in the old days we'd have said a large medium format negative, but we're now talking about the digital sensor is much bigger than even on the professional Canons and so on.
And I use this camera thanks to the wonderful team at Fujifilm when doing what I consider to be important portraiture, because I don't know how big these pictures are going to go.
So it's probably worth us quickly explaining that, isn't it? Because in a sense, you probably don't need that level of resolution and that caliber of camera if you're just going to print it in a magazine or even or a large print. But in the case of the King, this could end up the size of a wall in a gallery. And if you haven't used a camera of that quality, it would start to show at that point.
Yes. But interestingly, the reason why it has more of the painterly feel to it is because of the medium format, because it gives it this fantastic dynamic range.
Yeah.
And it gives it great tonal gradation.
Nice.
And what I'm trying to say is, if I'd taken that on the phone, it would be quite contrasty and it would be harsher, I suppose.
No,
but so even when it's reproduced small, it still has a greater quality
sort of intensity almost.
Yeah.
Can I quickly ask, presumably once the King arrives, you haven't got time to start messing around with different possible poses and stuff. So have you decided before he arrives what will be on the table and how he will stand and so on?
Well, we went through these paintings and not just ones in Windsor Castle, we looked at other paintings as well. And I rather like this idea of having the hand on the table. And
because it was in some of the pictures.
In many of the pictures.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, there's also a way you can stand, which is more regal or more... funnily enough, I'm going to tell you absolutely, and you can try this at home because it really works. One of my assistants was my daughter, Una, who is also a photographer.
On the actual shoot day.
Yeah, and she helps me. And she explained, she actually started out wanting to be an actress, but decided she didn't like being on the receiving end of the instructions. She prefers to be telling people what to do. And then she did a course in directing.
Is she related to you? Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Anyway, one of the things while she was learning to be an actress was how to stand. And they do this thing where they pretend they're animals and they imagine how the animal would stand, and then they take this through into their performance.
Right.
But the way of standing well as a man is if you imagine you've got two little beach balls, okay, maybe the size of large grapefruits.
Right.
And you imagine you've got that beach ball under each arm, and it makes you, that's not big enough, that's an apple. It makes you just hold your arms out a tiny bit. They've got to be imaginary.
Oh, sorry, listeners. I'm busy putting mangoes under my arms, and now he's telling me they've got to be
imaginary. But it makes you just hold your arms out a little bit.
Yeah.
And that makes you straighten your spine and makes you hold your head up.
Yeah.
And the other thing
I did the Alexander technique once, and it feels quite similar, oddly.
But what is also interesting is where you hold your hands when you're holding a sword. Now, in our test shot, which you will also
put on
see,
who's that one of your guys?
That's one of my assistants, or actually a great photographer called Robert Simpson, who came to assist me.
Yes.
And the idea of holding a sword out, it's planted on the ground, but you hold it, and it again is a much more positive, challenge me position. But funnily enough, it didn't work with the sword and the way the handle of the sword works. So in fact, he held it in. But there's this thing of standing properly.
Yeah.
And there's this thing which you often talk about. How do you make people relax in front of the camera? Relaxing isn't always a good thing, because relaxing is dropping the shoulders and curving the spine and dropping the chin.
You know, Annie Leibovitz feels the same. She's not interested in relaxing.
No, I agree with Annie, I'm afraid, more than I do with Cambridge.
So wrong, so wrong. In 10 years, they'll all be looking at mine going, okay, he understood this. Okay.
Now, there's lots of other things I can tell you about this, but something I do want to tell you is that you asked me. So he just comes in.
And you're ready. Have you decided with him already what will be on the table?
We've discussed a few things.
Okay.
Actually, and I've said this before, and again, you don't know at the start of a photo shoot what the greatest shot is going to be. Like a tennis match or a football match, you just don't know when the goal is coming.
Because will you be changing angles and stuff?
Well, we had 3 different positions.
Okay.
One was when he was standing in the middle of the corridor, one when he was by the window, and one when he was sitting.
Got it.
And that is so important in my thing, because that is allowing the subject to contribute to the portrait as much as the photographer.
So did he help you decide which of those 3?
Yeah, and then we gave him the best of the 3 options. And so I think we gave him either 10 or 12 or maybe 15 different pictures.
Okay. No, I want to get to that. That's down the journey.
Yeah.
Because I am interested in how you choose and edit and so on. But for now, we've done the preparation. We're now on the shoot day. He's come in. You've got these 3 positions. You've agreed what's on the table.
Yeah.
How long are you sort of giving each of those positions? Is it?
I have been photographing him for nearly 25 years, so there is a certain amount of understanding between us where we don't have to express everything.
You just get on with it.
But he knows when I'm ready. I know when he's ready. He knows when I've got it. And it doesn't matter whether you're the King of England or Cambridge Jones's daughter. When I'm photographing you, when I've got the shot, I just click my fingers and I can't stop doing it. And
so he just asks you so he can see your dance at the end. Okay, that's lovely. So you get that, and then is he talking to you while you're doing this?
We're talking.
You're just chatting away about whatever.
But it is important for me to do quite a lot of talking, which, funnily enough, I think I might have a talent in, because I hope you feel that you're engaging with him as the viewer, and so he's engaging with whatever I'm saying.
Which, by the way, is what I'm talking about when I say relaxing somebody. That's all I'm talking about. I don't mind if he stands like a king, but he needs to be relaxed. So you and I are actually aligned, and Annie is wrong. Okay. No, I love that. So you're talking, and he's sort of relaxing. Do you then tell him when you're going to take it, or do you just keep?
He knows that we're going to do some for insurance, and we have a long enough relationship where if either of us feel we need to do that particular shot again,
you can do it.
One will say to the other, can we do it this way or can we do it that way?
And in your heart of hearts, as you're taking it, do you already know which one you think you would end up with, or do you just, that process is to yet be decided?
I won't, of the 3 variations that we did, I loved them all. Right. I was not, none of them were third rate.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what combination between him and me on the day was going to work. Medals.
Yeah, got a few. Wow.
Luckily there is a Batman there who is in charge of making sure everything is in the right place, because I wouldn't know if it was in the right place. But what I hope that you feel in this picture is it's not about the medals. No. They are secondary.
Yeah.
You are looking at his face and
his
engaging
majesty
with him.
in a sense.
Yes. And they are, although they're there, they are secondary. They're not the lead of the picture.
So in a sense, they give him the status and the majesty of being the king.
Yeah.
But they're not what you're looking. They're not the deep. Yeah. I see that.
And I wish I knew what the
cummerbund.
No. There's a sash going across, but on the sash there is a horse. It's not a brooch. It's hanging freely off this chain.
Yeah.
Now it's incredibly important that faces from left to right,
not
from right to left. Little details there. Yeah. This is the garter star. Sometimes the sash might go over the garter star, which we don't want to happen. There are things I've learnt over the years. I think I've said this to you before. If the Queen was in this picture, she should be on his right. So, sorry, no, his left.
Yeah.
So in our picture, she would be on the right. So the caption would always read, "The King and the Queen." If you have her on the wrong side,
then the caption gets messed up.
Yeah.
Is it to do with the caption, or is that also a tradition that she's
tradition? I mean, or the king, or previously the Queen, would be the first one.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And then when you're photographing the boys, you would put Prince William on our left and Prince Harry on our right.
Seniority and status first. On the
little details like that.
What uniform is this? I mean, why? Because as we discussed in the coronation, you shot him with all the kind of regal robes and stuff. This is different because this is for the state.
Yes, actually, the shoot was for 3 different uniforms: leader of the army, leader of the navy, and leader of the air force. So this is one shot from 3, and that shoot was of 3 different shoots. But the naval uniform had its own unique position for one shot, the army had its own unique position, and the RAF had its own unique position.
Okay.
So we did him in the corridor twice, once by the window, once in the middle, and then did a rogue one.
Okay.
I.e., with the RAF, we actually took him outside the palace.
Right.
Outside Windsor Castle.
Did you just decide that on the day, or was that part of the plan?
Some things do get decided on the day.
And that's because you have a relationship of trust.
But we had rehearsed it. But it was weather dependent and many other things.
Yeah.
But
so you've slightly blown my mind, because it seemed hard enough for me that you'd got all these objects, all these medals, all this uniform, all the lighting right. But now you're telling me you did it 3 times.
Yeah, so 9 different portraits.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I've credited the GFX Fujifilm camera. I've credited all my team of assistants, including Una.
Yeah.
Have I credited myself yet? I don't know. But I want to credit the king himself, because to give as much as he gives as the sitter to my camera 9 times.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
all
serious.
of us at the end of the day were
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember I actually thanked him in front of my team. I just said, thank you for working as hard as we have, because I really like photographing him. He hits the ball back as hard as I hit it to him.
I know I meant to know this. What's the correct form of address when you're working with him? When
Your
you say,
Majesty
thank
is
you,
your first.
right, the first time.
Yeah.
So you say, if he'd been the first time, you'd say, thank you, Your Majesty.
Yeah,
And
or
then,
hello or good morning, Your Majesty.
and then,
Sir.
Sir, lovely. Okay, so you've done all of those, and at that point, are you going to use one of each uniform depending on where it's ending up? So you say there will be a winner of each uniform.
This one is the Naval Admiral. This is an Admiral of the Fleet uniform.
Great.
Little details I just want you to know is we checked. There's a painting in the top left-hand corner, and there's a splash of red in it, which I quite liked. Just that splash of red. But we do things like we check out who that painting is of.
I totally know what you mean, because
And this table, actually the table got auditioned. We were given 3 options of table because we don't want a table that might have some colonial connotation that we don't want.
Yeah.
So every single part of that picture, although it's a certain casualness to it, has been very carefully thought out.
On your point about the Marquis de Sade, I used to photograph Tony and Cherie Blair's Christmas card every year. And the first thing the papers would do every year is, if there was a bookcase behind it, they would magnify it right up and just go, look at what he's reading, look at it. And so you have to be really careful about all this detail, because they will rip it apart.
Due diligence. And you have to do it yourself as well.
Yeah.
Because you can't rely, because it's my name on the photograph at the end of the day.
Totally, but I just do love the way you've done this.
Thank you.
The more I look at it, the more I love it.
There's something I want to tell you about that, but I also just want to go. Can I go technical on you for a moment?
Okay, I'll give you a second to go technical.
Okay.
If you hear snoring,
f-stop.
Oh,
Okay. The point of the f-stop, which was quite shallow, was to keep him pin sharp and crisp, and to allow the subtlety of the out of focus, make him stand away from the background, and also reduce the busyness of it, but without making him look like he was a cutout. And it's incredibly important for the eye. We want to focus on the king. That's the point of this picture.
So we need to briefly explain this to anyone who doesn't understand this. So basically what Hugo's done here is open the aperture right up.
Which means a big hole.
Which means a big hole, a lot of light coming through, which gives him 2 things. It gives him a lot of light so he can capture maximum daylight, but it also means that the depth of field gets shallower. So he's got as you can see if you're looking at the Instagram, the king's face is in focus, but he's managed to throw everything else out of focus, which I think gives him these lines of colour all the way through the picture. I think it's stunning.
You wouldn't think I really had to research this picture that much.
You seem pretty on top of it.
But this morning I got a WhatsApp message from a friend of mine at Fujifilm called James Gilbert. It's almost easier if I just read you the WhatsApp messages.
Please do.
Good morning, Hugo. I hope you're well. This picture is hanging at the Devon and Cornwall Police HQ.
And he's talking about the same picture?
Absolutely, same picture. There it is. And he sent me a picture of the picture.
Great.
Okay. I'm thinking that am I right in thinking that it was taken at ISO 1600? Now, what ISO 1600 means is how fast was the film. If you've got a lot of flash going off and you're in a studio, you can use a low ISO because there's masses of light coming in.
Sorry to interrupt, but essentially we're talking about how receptive your camera is to light.
Yes,
basically.
exactly.
That's what the ISO is measuring. Yeah.
So if you have a large ISO, you can take a photograph with less available light, but you'll probably get a thin representation.
A slight loss of quality.
But these Fuji cameras are amazing.
Yeah.
And normally one might risk shooting on a regular Canon or something, 800 ISO, whatever.
That's when I start losing comfort.
Yeah, and he said, am I right in thinking it was taken at 1600?
Which in the old days would push a camera as far as it could possibly go.
So I said, I can't remember exactly, but we pushed it to the limits to allow the daylight to fill a very dark corridor. And then went on. Anyway, he said, perfect, thank you. No hurry, it's for an anecdotal conversation I have to have later on. And I wrote, and he said, I just wanted to tell them how the system worked in low light. And I said, well, the short answer is it's effing incredible. And then about 3 minutes later, Lewis, my assistant, has just looked and I want to play a guessing game with you I'll put you out of your own misery because we're all too busy for silly games. It was ISO 3200.
Wow.
Now that is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you never shot on film at that speed without getting a really grainy picture.
I wouldn't
but
dare
you
do
can
it.
see the details of his eyelashes in this portrait. That is how incredible these cameras are.
This intrigues me because that is really daring. Had you done anything to check that at 3,200 this was going to be all right? Because that is bold.
I know.
Wow.
I had to do a very large print of this. I was very grateful that I'd shot it on my Fujifilm camera. But I'm talking a sort of maybe just over 3 foot in height photograph, print.
Yeah.
And I went to the lab and I looked at it.
Did you know you were going to have to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they'd mounted it. It's too much paper not to have it rigid. And they put it up and it looked like a painting by someone like Velázquez in the National Portrait Gallery. And there was a sort of gravitas with this sort of length of leg at the base of the picture going up to, and I was for the first time I was suddenly intensely proud.
Well, rightly so. So now I want to move on and ask you, because there's lots of things about cropping and editing, and is this cropped out of interest?
It is, because there is a little bit more height at the top, because a rule when photographing the king or the queen, you should always leave enough space from the top of his head to the top of the picture where you could fit a crown. And that way you position them correctly on the page. Now,
so that's not because you're ever going to do it, it's just a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's lovely. I want to now say you've done the shoot, you pack up, you all go back. You do what? Do you personally look at the photos first on your own? Who works with you on the edit? How does that work with you?
You know that thing about a listener once asked what's the most embarrassing thing your camera would say if it could talk?
Yes.
Are you ready? It's not embarrassing. What it is these files are so big that my computer, when I get back, just goes, oh my God.
I'm going to shut down for a while.
And my assistant says, it's time for a new computer. They are huge files.
What are they, hundreds of megabytes?
300 megabytes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you don't want to shoot too many of those. So you get you're looking at it to check it's good. You're relieved and delighted. You've got some great shots. Yeah. Do you start editing straight away, or do you park that for a bit later?
Funnily enough, with these ones, we have to edit quite quickly because there's usually a pressing release moment.
Yeah.
And you can over polish things. You can overwork them. And sometimes you don't do enough polishing.
Here's my burning question, and I'm just intrigued by this. Do you delete any, or do you just highlight in some way on Lightroom?
Oh, I highlight. We have a star process. So you go through and I give everything 2 stars that I like.
Do you delete anything?
No, never.
So you will keep the whole shoot?
Yeah. The thing is, right now, we're looking for a specific photograph.
Yes.
But we might be looking for something else later.
True.
And
okay, I'm just much more brutal. I kind of go through it. This is why I go to Adobe Bridge and just delete a few because anyway. Okay, good. So
but it's also interesting as reference. It's like a sketchbook. When you go back, you can sort of see what lighting worked, what lighting didn't work in the whole sort of build-up process.
Yes.
I find it a really useful sketchbook.
Do you then highlight the ones you love? Do you have grades like definites, maybes, no's?
Yeah, everything's 2.
Yeah.
And then you go through the 2s. And they either become 1, they don't get a 0 because they obviously caught your eye, so they go to 1, and what you like goes up to 3. Then you go through the 3s and you make up to 4, and hopefully by the time you've got to 4 stars, you've only got about 5 pictures left, and then you compare 2 images on the screen at the same time.
Right, and decide.
Because it's much easier. Going from picture to picture to picture, you can't really see. But if you've got 2 or 3, it's obvious that one's a winner. So then the other 2 get downgraded, and then you go forward like that.
And you're doing this multiple times because you've got the uniforms and the different locations. Are you narrowing each of those down to roughly how many?
4 maybe.
5,
but there's nearly always one which you know is an
the winner.
out and out winner.
Are you then going to process them by, and for listeners' sake, in the old days we'd have been in a dark room and we'd have looked at the film, but in the modern age we have the ability to tweak slightly the...
We are not, on these images, we do no Photoshop at all.
So not even adjustment of the levels or the contrast?
What I do is I will edit in a way that I could have edited a print, in a wet print in the darkroom.
Exactly.
So I am not moving pixels.
Which is the great thing about Lightroom, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think. I love it.
So you are looking at the king as he looked on that day, which happened to be 2 days before his 75th birthday.
So my question is, I think, you're now sending them across to the palace. What form? Because there's a million ways you could do that. How do you do that? And this is a sensitive, a high-level, state-level set of photographs. How are you sharing them and getting them to look at them? What?
I'm both contemporary and old school. And I will send prints, because I think a print tells you so much more than a backlit screen.
Yeah.
But I will also send them as a digital image, so that they can see them if they want to on an iPad or whatever.
So going back to the print, are you printing those yourselves in the studio, or are you giving those to a printer?
I have a lovely, wonderful, trusted printer.
So you say, I want print of this, 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 and this, and I'm going to show them to the king.
And they also contribute to the final product. They will say, God, Hugo, I think it's a bit hot here, which means too light, too bright, burnt out. Or do you want to bring out the shadows in that corner? If they're having difficulty with it and they know that this is not an artistic thing, it's actually maybe an oversight.
I think that's almost a whole episode in itself, isn't it? A great printer and what they can bring to it.
But I hope what I'm conveying is that although it's one picture of one man taken by one photographer, the team effort is fantastic.
Absolutely.
And I love that team process.
So your printer prints the ones you're going to send to the palace. Do you print more than one copy? So you've got a copy? So you've got a copy. You send a lot to the palace. By courier?
Funnily enough, I usually deliver them myself.
Do you?
Which is interesting, because I've got 2 dogs.
Yeah.
And sometimes I take them for a walk up by the lab, and then they get in the back of the car, I go to the lab, pick up the pictures, and they come off to Buckingham Palace with me.
So then you get word of which one, do they choose them, or do they just say which ones they can't? Who's making the final decision?
I think he is.
He's making, so they let you know.
I'm saying I think he is, but I'm pretty sure he is. I mean, it's him that's going out there. He wants to, be represented in the way he wants to be represented.
And then, in a sense, we're close to the end of the job then, because you now know which is the final print. Does somebody else then take over to get involved in the 20,000 copies of the...
That was completely out of my hands. I gave a digital file.
You give them the thing, and they...
So
and then
I had nothing to do with that, other than took the image.
So once the print has gone to the palace, digital or otherwise, and they've given you their choice, and you've handed over the digital file, in a sense, your job is done. Job well done. Brilliant.
What I love is that I do think it's a good picture.
It's brilliant.
Technically and as a portrait. And why I say that is because 20 years of being on either side of the lens has culminated in this. And I'm very proud of it.
And that's what you see. And it's timeless. It's beautiful. It really is. So was there any sort of finale or repercussion at the end of, once you'd chosen all this? Anything?
Well, what
to add?
happened was certain pictures were chosen by the king, who then signed copies and gave them to regiments that he was affiliated with directly.
Right.
And then I have been allowed to set up my own website called Crown Portraits, where all my military portraits of the king are available.
Lovely. Thank you so much for taking us through that. I've really enjoyed that.
Well, do you know what I'm looking forward to?
What's that?
Doing a similar journey with you. Right now, I adore your Berlin Wall photographs,
that's
and I
very
think they need championing and being made available. So
Thank
I can't
you.
wait.
That's very kind of you. Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. Please do, if you want to follow us on the Insta, Hugo and Jones.
And let's not ask any questions because I've given all.
Yeah, don't ask any questions. We're not answering any questions on this. You've got it all. It's all there. Lovely to see you, Hugo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.